grab your starter decks. It's time to play Six Forms. Each player will set their life total to 20, and then the player who loses all their life first loses the game. Each player will have a deck of 50 to 100 cards, and then when you're done with your cards during the game, they'll go into each player's respective graveyard. The graveyard will be just above the decks, and the cards in the graveyard will be face up. Next, you'll have your resources for the game, and each player will start with one spark. Here they are represented by these dice, and the dice will be our counters for those. We'll also have this shared query of energy cubes. This will have 32 cards in it, and each player each turn will get one energy cube. Finally, we have this grid here, and we'll set these aside. This is a 4x4 grid. The half of the grid on your side is for your cards to be played, and the other half is for your opponent. You can't play cards or place cards into your opponent's side, so make sure that you stick to these 8 on your side. They are your spawn zones. To reduce your opponent's life to 0, you'll need to play cards. To play cards, you'll use energy, which is your resource, to play the card, and the card's energy cost is here at the bottom left-hand corner. So this card requires 12 to play. This card requires 0 energy to play it. Now, we looked at our resources before. They are energy cubes and sparks. However, they are not energy. They create energy. So when we use these, they'll give us the energy that we need to then play these cards. So to get an energy cube, you will get that every single turn of the game, and you'll build them up. Once you have an energy cube, you keep it. It doesn't go away. So then, to activate an energy cube and create energy with it, you'll turn it from vertical to horizontal, and now you'll have 1 energy. Next, we have the sparks. These are a little bit different. You can only activate 1 of these per turn, and when they're activated, they go away from the game. So you keep energy cubes, but sparks go away when you use them. So let's activate 1 of these to create another energy. That will reduce us here down to 1 energy spark left, and we'll now have 2 energy available to us. So again, 1 energy created with our energy cube, 1 energy created with our spark. There are not components to keep track of energy, so keep track of that in your mind. Now that we have 2 energy, let's start playing some cards. First off, this one costs 0, but it will create 2 energy for us. So again, we're not gaining sparks or energy cubes. We're simply creating energy with this, and it costs 0. So I will just give up 4 of my life to play this card, and I'll play it for free. So there we go. I play it. I have 4 energy now. With that 4 energy, I can play these 2 cards. Note that you're not limited to the number of cards you can play. You simply need energy to play them, and if you have enough, you can do so. When you're done with cards, again, they go to discard. This card's done doing what it's supposed to do, so we'll put it here in the graveyard. And now I have 1 energy left of the 4 created, 2 from the spark and energy cube, and 2 from the card. And then once I get to the end of my turn, any leftover energy goes away. Further, on my opponent's turn, I can activate cubes and sparks as I like. Now, I activated 1 of my sparks on my opponent's turn, or on my turn, but I could activate that last one. Now that's a new turn for my opponent on my opponent's turn. Again, 1 spark per turn, as many energy cubes as you like per turn. Sparks go away when they're done being used. You keep energy cubes after you have used them. There are 3 types of cards in the game. Action cards, when played, are not played into any of the zones. You simply play them, and when you're done doing what they say, you'll put them into the graveyard. Next, we have battlefield cards. These are the only cards that are played onto the battlefield. Battlefield cards are most easily recognized by the stats at the bottom of the card, or by the keyword artifact or avatar in that information bar area. Now, you play your cards on your side of the field on your battlefield zones. So these spawn zones here, these 8, are where you can play your cards. You cannot play cards up here. That's not allowed. Only on your side. Next, we have equip cards. Equip cards, this second keyword here, is how you'll know it is an equip card. When it's played, it stays in play until the thing that it's equipped to is destroyed. Here, this equips an avatar. This dragon, Prismatic Dragon, is an avatar, so we can play this card, not on the battlefield. That's exclusive for battlefield cards. and then it will stay in play until that battlefield card is destroyed. Battlefield cards also stay in play after they're put onto the battlefield. Action cards, again, are the only ones that when you play them, you just put them away. So then, let's say Prismatic Dragon gets destroyed, it goes into the graveyard, and then the equip card that is on it follows it into the graveyard. All cards, when they're played, are played vertical. This is called ready position in the game. However, battlefield cards can be played in different orientations and also upside down. No other cards can be played this way. So for example, when we play a battlefield card, we can play it in that ready position, vertical, or we can play it in what's called exhausted position, which is horizontal. Further, we can also play cards that are battlefield cards face down. This card has a sneaky effect that when it is face down, it can activate. So if we place this card face down, we can put it in either of those positions. Again, vertical or horizontal. To set up the game, everyone draws 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every player gets their 1 spark, and make sure you have 32 energy cubes in your query. Now you're ready to play. The steps of a turn spell out the acronym DRAMA. The first step is to draw a card for turn. You'll draw one of these and it is required. Regroup step, you can take any of these actions. You may ready cards, gain a cube, and this is how you'll be gathering those resources during that regroup step. And then any other energy cubes that you had horizontal, this is when you can turn those back to vertical and create energy with them again. Next, you'll have the act step where you can play cards and take action. Then you'll move into your move step where you can move your battlefield cards like chess pieces and battle your opponent. Next, you'll go back to the act step where you can prepare yourself for your opponent's turn, and then you will end your turn. Let's take a look at an example turn. Here we have a large hand and a field already built out. Now, when it's the first player's first turn, you will skip 2 steps of your acronym DRAMA, the steps of a turn. You'll skip the draw step and the move step. However, every other turn will look like this. Let's go through it now. So the first step in DRAMA is D for draw, so we will draw a card for the turn. Next is the regroup step. This is the step where we can gain a new energy cube. When we gain it, it does not go on the battlefield. It's going to stay out here where everyone can see it. It does not go into my hand, and it will be vertical. So I can have it available to me to activate to create some energy. Then I will be able to ready cards for free. So it doesn't cost me anything to do this. Readying a card means that we're going to take it from this exhausted position into that vertical position of ready. So I can ready anything that I control into this position of ready for free during the turn. And that includes this energy cube that is horizontal. So now I'll be able to activate both of these. That is the regroup step. Next is the act step, in which we can play and place cards. So we learned that we can put cards face down. If they're battlefield cards, that would be placing a card. And we can only place 1 card per turn. So we can't place a bunch of cards. I will go ahead and place this one face down here in this position. And then I will activate 2 energy cubes to play this card. It costs 2 energy. So I'll create 2 energy, turn those horizontal. Now I have 2 energy, I can play this card. I will do that. And then maybe I'll activate something else, but for now, we'll just move on to the move step. During the move step of a turn, you can move your battlefield cards. You can move as many as you like. So for example, I could move this card very far down the way. However, I can't go through my opponent's cards. This is like chess, a bishop or a rook. You can only move a straight direction. You can't go through cards. So here I'll move this card, let's say here onto my opponent's side, just to show you that we can do that. And then this card will then move and attack this other card. I'm not going to get into battle yet, but just know that these cards would battle. At this point in the move step, I can move as many cards as I like. And after that battle, those cards would go into their respective owners' graveyards. So that would be my move step. Then at the end of the game, or the end of the turn, I can play some more cards if I wanted to. However, I'm going to postpone that. And that would be the second act step. And then at the end of the turn, I'll end my turn, but if I have more than 7 cards, I have to discard down to 7. And here I have 8 cards, so I need to discard one of these cards. So I'll discard this from my hand, and that will go into my graveyard. From here, I'll pass the turn to my opponent, and it is their turn. During the move step of your turn, you'll be moving battlefield cards around the battlefield. Now, some cards can move, the ones with arrows, and some cards cannot move, the cards without arrows. The cards with arrows can move up to 2 spaces on the battlefield, and they can move the turn that they're played, which means that you can attack your opponent the turn that you play a card. Now, it can only move up to 2 spaces in a straight line. So think of this as a bishop or a rook in chess. So if we play this card here, it can move in the direction of these arrows up to 2 spaces in that direction. So here, this card could move these 2 spaces after it has been played and go to this place here. Further, the card could move this direction. The card then could move backwards, but there's already a card here. So like chess, you can't move into a spot where a component or a piece that you control already lives. So I can't go into this zone. Further, I can't move through zones of cards that are already on the field. Again, much like chess, you have to basically overcome the card that you're trying to move through. So this card, for example, can move in a straight line, but it can't move through this card and into this zone. It first has to battle this card to attack it. So then, let's look at how this movement works. And as a note, the distance that your card can move where it is not blocked by another piece is called that card's reach. So this card can reach these zones. It can reach this zone that this card is in, but because I own it, I can't actually move here, but I could reach it if it was my opponent's. Further, this card's reach includes these 2 zones, this zone here, and the zone that this card is in. However, its reach does not include up here. Then this card can move backwards, so its reach is also here. So that is the reach of the card. The reach of it is where it could actually move to on the battlefield. And we're moving again in straight lines, so we cannot move here and then move in this direction to claim this as reachable. It's not. We have to move like a bishop or a rook with cards, and only up to 2 spaces. Now, let's do some battle and see how that plays out. Here, just like in chess, we can move the card into our opponent's card. And in chess, anytime that you move into a space, you would automatically win that battle and capture their piece. However, in 6 forms, cards are going to use stats to battle instead. So, the stats of a card include their attack, the first number, the card's health is the second number, and its weakness, which is the 4th number, and we'll look at this in detail a little bit later. When cards battle, they will deal damage to their opposing card's health for the amount of their attack. So this card will do 6 damage to the card's 5 health. That would be more than is needed to destroy the card. This card will do 5 damage to this card, its 6 health, which will not be enough to reduce its health to 0. So then when these 2 cards battle, this card's health will run out. When a card's health runs out, it is sent to the graveyard and it is destroyed. Any additional damage that was dealt to this, so there was an additional 1, that additional 1 goes against the other player's life points. So if that player has 20 life, when these cards battle, their life will go from 20 to 19. However, there is a way to stop that overflow. And that's when the exhausted position comes into play. So let's play a scenario where this card is in that horizontal exhausted position. When the cards go to attack, an exhausted card will not attack back. So here, this card again is exhausted. Its 5 attack will not be dealing damage to the 6 health of this card. It won't attack it, it won't damage it. This card will still attack because it's in that ready position, and it will deal 6 damage to this card. But when it wins, that additional 1 damage will not overflow into the other player because that card was basically in this defensive mode. It's protecting the other player's life. Now, let's look at this setup some more. We have more cards we can move because we can move any number of cards that we like on our turn 1 time. So we could move this card here in these diagonal positions. However, it could only put me here or here, but this card's blocking, so I can only move here, here, and here with this card. However, over here we have this Prismatic Dragon, and it has a facet called Fly. Here's where our exception of battle comes into play. So flying cards exist on a separate plane. It's called the Sky Plane, and this card can move over the top of any of my cards, the card that are allies with this. It can move over the top of those cards and get 2 cards past it. So here, this card can move and attack this card that is face down because it has Fly. If it did not have Fly, it could not go over the top of this card. And cards that are on the same plane cannot move through one another. So for example, let's say this flying card was here. The ground card can move underneath the flying card, and likewise. But if there were 2 flying cards, then they cannot pass through one another. So keep that 3D chess in mind. Then we will attack this face down card. When a card that is face down is attacked, it is flipped over at that time, and the player who flips that card over has to pay the cost to play the card. If they cannot pay the cost to play the card will go into the graveyard once the battle is over, regardless of how much life or health this card has left. Okay? When the card is flipped over, you will battle it. Let's say that we could pay for this to keep the example simple. So we battle this card. This card will deal 10 damage to this card's 8 health. However, this card has a star. Now, whenever a card has a star, it means that this card will never attack the other card, whether it is ready position or exhausted position. It will never attack the other card. However, that does not mean that if this card was vertical, it would not protect the person's life. So if this card was ready, this card attacked, it's 10 to 8, that would do 8 damage to that other player's life. However, because this one was horizontal when it was face down, we're flipping it over into the same position that it was at, orientation wise, and then they battle and this card is destroyed. Okay. So that means that that card's destroyed. Now we have other cards in play that we can still move. Our opponent has no cards left on the board, which means that we could move our cards to attack that player directly to do a total life point damage or life damage to them equal to the total attack of our card. However, to attack them directly, we have to move into their furthest spawn zones closest to them. Now this card cannot move to the opponent's side, even though it still could move for the turn because it hasn't moved yet. And that's because this card's in the way and we've already moved this card. So we can't attack with this one. However, this card here that we just played can move to attack the other player directly. So we can move this card up and do 3 total life point damage to our opponent by attacking them directly with this card. If the card was already on their side, we don't have to move the card around the field to attack our opponent directly, but when we attack them directly with it, and we can if it's already over here, it doesn't mean that we can then move the card again somewhere else just because the card hasn't physically moved. Attacking the opponent directly does use up the movement of that card. Now, here is a scenario that we need to look at as well, and that is accounting for that weakness number. So let's say we've played out this scenario here, and then our opponent plays this Black Star Dragon. Okay, they're going to play it out here into one of their spawn zones. And then these 2 cards are very far into my opponent's lane, which opens up the ability for them to attack the card from behind my card. So my cards are essentially getting flanked. They're being attacked from behind. And when you attack a card from behind, it doesn't have to just be straight behind. It can also be one of these vertical positions. So kind of think of it as from the back angle or directly behind. We're attacking behind one of the cards. When this happens, that weakness comes into play. And this is what that looks like. So here we're going to use that 3rd number. Now this Prismatic Dragon is being attacked from behind. So again, keep in mind that this card here, the Black Star Dragon, is moving and attacking this card. So this one's the aggressor, this one's the defender, essentially. And cards, when they attack each other, they do attack each other simultaneously. However, because this card's attacked from behind, we're going to take that 4th number and add it to this card's attack. So its attack becomes 12. And then we're also going to take that last number and subtract it from this card's attack. So this card's attack becomes 6. So then the Black Star Dragon will deal 12 damage to the health of this card. That will basically create 2 additional player damage because of the overflow. And then the 6 attack of this card, again reducing, will do 6 damage to the 8 health of this card, meaning that this card will beat the stronger card because it was attacked from behind. So we'll put those into their respective graveyards. Again, this card's attacking like this. Now, at the end of every battle, it's important to note that the health of all cards regenerates itself after each individual battle. So when this card attacks the card over here at the end of that exact battle, its health will go back to 6 once the battle is over if it's not destroyed. And the same for all of these other cards. So in this particular battle, the card would have been reduced to 2 health left, but now that the battle is over, it will go back to that full health of 8. So that's how weakness comes into play. It is also important to note that cards that are horizontal, or this exhausted position, cannot move. They have no reach to them because they're essentially resting or sleeping or just being in that dormant position. So the arrows essentially mean nothing for the card when they are horizontal. So if your card is horizontal, it has no reach at all. Let's take a look at one last battle scenario. Let's say this card gets played, and the turn that it's played, we move it to attack this card. Now, this card has more health than this card's attack, so it will be left with 6 health after the battle. And then the question becomes, since this card's health is not reduced to 0, and this card cannot attack this card, and this card's health remains full, neither card is destroyed in battle. What do you do? So in this particular scenario, when neither card is destroyed in battle, the card that was the aggressor and did the attacking will retreat back to where they came from. So in this example, I played the card here and it moved to attack. Nothing happens, so it will retreat here. Further, if I was back in this corner and I moved the full distance to attack that card, the card would then retreat all the way back to its original position. In a scenario where a card is attacked and it's flipped over, this is a reveal battle play, okay? Reveal battle play or battle reveal play. The card is flipped over and you have to pay the cost to play the card at that time. If you don't have enough energy, so for example, this requires 7. If you don't have enough energy that you could activate from cubes or sparks to play that card, then you don't have to activate them to spend to play this, but you are required to spend them if you could create them with your resources that are either sparks or energy cubes. So that's your tangible energy, is anything that you could create with these, or any energy that you already have available to you that was created earlier. So then if this card cannot be activated to be played, then the battle will follow its normal path. They'll battle each other. However, this card will not be allowed to attack regardless of its position, or if it had an actual number here and not a star. So regardless of position, it can never attack during this time because it was not, you could not pay for it. At the end of the battle, you'll resolve as normal, so the card would then retreat, but this card will be considered ousted because you could not pay for it, and it will be destroyed regardless of how much health is left on the card. So again, you'll retreat, this card won't be victorious, and then after the battle, this will be destroyed. So no card here is victorious in battle, but that card was ousted because you could not pay for it. Let's wrap up with a few closing notes. Cards with the bang symbol can be played at any time during the game, including your opponent's turn. This also means that cards with a bang symbol in their effect text can also be activated during an opponent's turn. This card, when it's in play and while it's active, so that means it's face up, active is face up, you can animate the card to do this effect. So here a magical action card is played. This is a magical action card. It will allow us to basically pay 1 less for that card until the end of the turn, the next one that we play. Now this one already costs 0. -1 won't give us energy. It just, you can't go below 0 basically for the cost of a card. When you animate a card, and to animate a card, it needs to be face up and in ready position. To animate the card, you turn it horizontal, and that will activate that effect. Now, this card can do this animation during an opponent's turn. So if they move to attack a card, you can actually go from ready position to exhausted position during their turn as they're going to attack you. You would then get the effect of that card when it's animated, and when you animate a card, you cannot move it around or orient it. It uses up that ability, so you'll have to wait until your next turn to get it back into that ready position. Next, some cards will say on play, and then they'll have a cost here. This is 1 energy to get this effect. So when you play it, this is optional, so we don't have to pay this in order to play the card. So if we played this card and did not pay this, we don't do what it says, we just play it for 2. However, if we play it, we may pay an additional 2 energy to get that bonus there. So that's what those are. And then you'll notice that it says on play, so when we play it, on dodge. So when you dodge, you have to do this because there's no associated cost. You have to pay 1 energy or you lose 1 life. So you get to pick. Here again, same kind of thing. You have to optionally do this if you want it, or if you dodge, you have to pay 2 or lose 1 life. Some cards will say plan. When you plan on a card, it means that you'll take that number. This said plan 2, so we'll take the top 2 cards of our deck, look at them, decide what order we want them in, and put them back on top. If we don't like some of those cards, then we may put any number of them on the bottom, 1 or both of them. If there's 3, you can do any number. Okay, so that's what planning is. That's worth noting. Forgive the spilling cards here. Next, we have on battle reveal. So an on reveal effect happens when the card is flipped over. Wow. When the card is flipped over, and you will simply do what it says. When it says on battle reveal, the card will be face down, and it has to be flipped over when a card attacks it. So at this point, it is revealed by battle, and that's when that card's effect will be activated.